I never imagined that blood ties could feel like a noose. But when my entitled sisters demanded to profit from my vacation home, and their husbands literally broken, I realized how thin the line is between family and foe. I grew up believing that family meant safety. Sisters meant laughter during summer road trips, whispered secrets over brushing teeth at 2 a.m., loyalty that could survive anything. But today, as I stare at the shattered lock on my front door, that ideal lies in ruins, along with my vacation home, which I inherited 5 years ago after our parents died. My sisters, Emma and Claire, both married with kids and comfortable lives, suddenly decided that the beach house belonged to the entire family. And when I refused to let them rent it out for profit, their husbands took matters into their own hands. It started innocuously. Emma called first. Her voice, silky with false concern, asked if I'd consider letting them use the house for a weekend. "It's just a family getaway," she said. I'd spoken to Emma 1,000 times, but that tone was new, entitled, expectant. So I said no gently. The house is my refuge. I visit maybe 3 times a year to detox from city madness, keep it clean, preserve its privacy. "It's mine," I told her. Not aggressively, but firmly. She sighed, long enough for me to imagine eyes rolling. "All right," she said, but I heard challenge in her voice. A week later, Claire called. She had a pitch, dressed up like charity. "We'll rent it out, split the profits, cover maintenance, let us handle everything." The word profit dangled between us like a bribe. I'd warned them families like theirs, 2 married women, each with 2 kids, would rent it for birthday parties, social media photo ops, half-day spa routines. I couldn't put my name on that disaster. "I'm not comfortable with that," I said. For once I sounded tired of having to defend my ownership, defend my choices. She pushed. "We'll pay your mortgage." I nearly laughed. "It's paid off." She said, "You're so stubborn." I chose to bite my tongue. That night, I lay awake imagining my sisters in that house without me, banging cooking pots, breaking things, leaving traces of them behind. I imagined the kids spilling juice on the rug, the husband staining the deck with beer, the echo of their laughter bouncing off my memories. More than anything, I dreaded how easily family can become landlord-tenant when money's involved. But I slept thinking it would pass. It didn't. 2 days ago, I got a call from the local police. My vacation home, my sanctuary, had been broken into. Nothing stolen miraculously, but the door was busted wide open, hinges twisted. Whoever did it didn't need to steal, they wanted access. They wanted a message. And then yesterday morning, I found out from our neighbor that Claire's husband, Max, and Emma's husband, Josh, were seen carrying rental signs, promotional flyers, checking out online listing sites, entering the property. So I called Josh. He answered casually, "Hey, I was just checking the house for repairs." "Repairs? The deck is fine, the roof is fine, never mind." I said, "Josh, the lock is broken." "Someone broken." He paused, then shrugged. "Well, it wasn't me." I pressed. He hung up. Then Claire's phone went to voicemail. Emma's messages were unanswered. My heart pounded. My sisters had turned familial bonds into a business scheme, and when I refused to play, their husbands broken. Now charges have been filed. Burglary, trespassing, vandalism. I don't enjoy watching them be criminally charged, but let's not sugarcoat this. They violated my property, violated trust, and violated boundaries. And as of this morning, the local sheriff's office confirmed they're being investigated and the case is moving forward. I sit here now, stirring coffee in our cramped kitchen, watching the sun rise over the city. I feel a cocktail of emotions, not relief, not triumph, but something harsher, sorrow. Sorrow for the family I thought I belonged to. Sorrow that money always corrodes what it touches. Sorrow that my sanctuary, a place to heal, was treated like a vending machine. I hear my phone buzzing. It's a text from Emma. "We need to talk. Please." She doesn't ask how I am or apologize, just that doom-laden phrase. I don't know what I want to say back. How do you respond when your sister demands, then vandalizes? And amid all this, a darker wonder. Maybe I'm writing the next chapter of our lives, one where trust is gone and profit has replaced respect. But I'm not sure what kind of moral that story will teach. Betrayal cuts deeper than physical wounds, and denial is a slow poison. I didn't reply to Emma's text. Not because I didn't have words, I had too many. None of them polite. And yet, hours passed, and I still stared at my screen, rereading her message like it held the secret to time travel. "We need to talk. Please." That was the same woman who used to braid my hair when I was 8 and sneak me extra candy behind Mom's back. Now she was indirectly responsible for her husband breaking into my house. How do you process that? I'll tell you how, with cold coffee and an even colder stare at the wall while your entire belief in family rearranges itself like a broken jigsaw puzzle. By noon, Claire reached out too. "I heard about the police. Can we fix this before it gets ugly?" The sheer audacity of that message should be studied in a lab. I didn't respond to her either. Because it was already ugly. Because no apology had been offered. Because I knew what "fix this" really meant. Make it go away so they wouldn't have to explain to their kids why daddy might be going to court for trying to Airbnb someone else's property. The lawyers got involved soon after. Not mine, Emma's and Claire's. They had the gall to send me mediation options. Mediation. As though we were negotiating a divorce settlement and not recovering from a felony. I sent the documents back unread. If they wanted to grovel, they could do it with sincerity, not legalese. And just as I thought it couldn't get more absurd, my mother's old friend, Louise, called me out of the blue. She sounded hesitant, nervous. "Sweetheart, I don't want to interfere, but the girls are saying you're overreacting. That you're making a big deal out of a misunderstanding." I laughed. An actual, manic, hollow laugh that probably frightened poor Louise. Overreacting? Was I supposed to invite them in for lemonade after they crowbarred my front door? "Louise," I said, my voice flat as a dead fish, "tell me something. If your front door was broken down and your sister's husband stood inside your living room with a rental agreement and a measuring tape, would you call that a misunderstanding?" There was silence. Then a soft "I suppose not." Suppose not. The way people hesitate when family crosses boundaries is remarkable. As if DNA gives you a discount on accountability. But not anymore. I was done discounting my peace for the sake of family harmony. And then, God help me, Emma showed up at my apartment. I live on the 4th floor of a walk-up in a not-so-charming part of the city. She rang the buzzer 3 times before I even looked through the peephole. There she was, wearing one of those faux sincere smiles that make you want to throw something. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice all breathy like she was the one betrayed. "No," I said through the door. There was a pause. "Seriously?" "Yes," I said. "Seriously?" She stood there for a while. "You're going to let this ruin everything?" I almost opened the door just to strangle her with my bathrobe belt. "You broke into my house." "My husband did." "Oh, forgive me," I snapped. "Let me send him a thank you basket. He was trying to help. We thought you were being unreasonable." There it was. That word again. Unreasonable. Because not handing over my personal property for their profit was now a mental health diagnosis. "You thought I was being unreasonable, so you broke the law?" She didn't answer. "I want you to leave, Emma. I came here because I care about you." "No," I said, my voice cracking with something ugly, something finally surfacing. "You came here because you care about your image. Because your husband might face charges. Because your plan to turn my house into your cash cow went sideways." She blinked and I saw it. Shame. Real, raw, ugly shame. But it didn't stop her. "You could have just said yes." "I did," I said. "I said no." That's also an answer. She didn't argue that. She just stared at me like I was a stranger, and maybe I was. Or maybe she was. Either way, the Emma I remembered, the one who held my hand during our father's funeral, would never have been part of this circus. She left without another word. And I locked the door twice. Later that night, I received a call from Officer Danvers, the one handling the case. "We've confirmed the timeline with the neighbors," he said. "Security footage puts both Max and Josh inside the property the day of the break-in. We're preparing formal charges." I didn't feel joy. Just exhaustion. I thanked him, then sat in the dark, wondering when exactly the dam broke. Was it when our parents died and left me everything because I was the only one who didn't beg them for money every Christmas? Was it when I stopped attending birthday dinners filled with passive-aggressive sniping and Instagram photo ops? Maybe. Or maybe the dam had cracks long before and I just never wanted to see them. The next morning, Claire finally called. "Can we talk?" she said. "You're talking. I mean in person." "I don't think that's wise." "I didn't know Josh was going to do that." "I swear." "But you supported it." She didn't deny it. "I didn't think it'd go that far." "It always goes that far, Claire." That's what I wanted to say. But instead, I told her something else, something that made her go quiet. "You both acted like it was yours." That's the part that stings. She whispered, "I'm sorry." And for the first time, I almost believed it. Almost. 3 days passed without a word from anyone. Not Emma. Not Claire. Not their husbands or their lawyers. Just the silence you get after a storm when everything's been ripped out of the ground and now lies still, too heavy to move. I thought I'd feel peace. I didn't. I felt something closer to grief. I spent those days cleaning the beach house alone. I drove down there with the locksmith, replaced the busted door, swept up the shards of splintered wood, scrubbed fingerprints off doorknobs even though I knew it wouldn't erase what happened. I found a boot scuff on the kitchen counter, right where I always set down my coffee mug. It looked deliberate. Like someone had stepped up just to prove they could. I stared at that mark for a long time before finally scrubbing it with a wire sponge until my knuckles bled. It wasn't just vandalism. It was a message. One that said, "You're alone. We'll take what we want." And then smile at you over dinner like nothing happened. Funny thing is, I used to dream about this house. I'd sit through boring meetings at work and escape here in my head, bare feet on cool tiles, ocean breeze through cracked windows, the hum of peace that didn't need explanation. Now it felt haunted. Not by ghosts but by entitlement. I thought about selling. Listing it, getting rid of the weight. But that would feel like giving them exactly what they wanted. I wasn't ready to give up that easily. I stayed 2 nights. The second night, I lit a fire even though it was 80 degrees outside. Something primal, I guess. I sat in front of it drinking cheap whiskey and rereading a letter my mom wrote me before she died. She wrote, "You're the strong one. That's why we left it to you." At the time, I took it as comfort. Now it felt like a curse. Strength meant isolation. Strength meant being the one left to deal with the fallout of everyone else's recklessness. On the morning of the third day, I got a voicemail from Josh. He sounded panicked. I just got off the phone with the detective. I didn't know this would go this far. I swear, I didn't mean to break anything. I thought the door was unlocked. Please, can we talk? A weak man's lie wrapped in cowardice. You didn't mean to break anything? You printed flyers. Still, I saved the voicemail. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted evidence of the unraveling. Maybe I just liked hearing the fear. I returned to the city that afternoon and found Claire waiting outside my building. Her arms were crossed, eyes swollen. No makeup, no dramatics, just a worn-out woman who looked like she hadn't slept. I'm not here to fight, she said quickly. I need to tell you something. I didn't answer, but I didn't shut the door either. Josh is scared, she said. Good. He didn't think you'd actually press charges. I didn't think he'd break in. Claire flinched. I know. I waited. I didn't know it was going to go that far. But I also didn't stop it. That's on me. There it was. Ownership. A rare and unwelcome guest in this family. I said, do you know what it's like to wake up one day and realize your sisters would rather see you isolated and robbed than simply respect a boundary? Tears filled her eyes. I do now. I didn't soften. I couldn't afford to. You know what hurts most? I added. Not the broken door. Not even the legal mess. It's that I was trying to protect something that meant the world to me, and you all made me feel crazy for it. Like wanting to be left alone was selfish. It's not, she said. It's not selfish. For a moment, the air between us stopped pulsing with anger. Just sadness now. Exhaustion. I loved that house because it was the only place in my life that hadn't been invaded, I said quietly. Until now. She nodded. I understand. I wish I had sooner. We stood there, two people who once built blanket forts together, now standing on the edge of something broken we couldn't name. I didn't hug her. But I didn't slam the door either. After she left, I listened to Josh's voicemail again. Then I deleted it. The next morning I called Officer Danvers. I don't want to drop the charges, I told him. But I don't want jail time either. I want accountability. I want them to know they can't do this and walk away like it was just a family squabble. We can pursue restitution, he offered. Probation, a court-ordered apology, reimbursement for damages. That sound about right? Yes, I said. It does. I didn't want revenge. Just recognition. That what they did was wrong. That it cost something. The news reached the rest of the family within hours. An aunt texted me a passive-aggressive prayer. A cousin asked if I finally made peace. No one offered to pay for the new door. And then, finally, Emma called. I'm not here to apologize, she said right off the bat. Not because I don't feel bad, but because I know it won't change anything. That caught me off guard. But I am here to admit it. We crossed a line. We wanted something that wasn't ours and we tried to get it by force. That's disgusting. I see that now. I waited. I don't expect forgiveness, she added. But I wanted you to hear it from me. I said I do forgive you. Even as I said it, I wasn't sure if I meant it. But it felt like the first stitch in something larger. Not a full repair, just a thread pulled tight. Emma asked, do you still want us out of your life? Yes, I said without hesitation. For now. She didn't argue. Okay. After the call, I sat in the silence again. But this time it felt different. Like space, not emptiness. Like solitude, not exile. The beach house is still mine. The charges are still filed. The damages are still real. But something else is shifting too. Maybe boundaries don't have to mean endings. Maybe this is how healing begins. The court hearing was scheduled for a Monday morning in mid-May. Sunny warm, birds chirping like it was a day for ice cream and strolls, not for dragging your brother-in-law through criminal proceedings. I wore black. Not out of drama, but because I wanted to feel invisible, armored. I didn't want to be seen as the villain. I wanted to disappear into the background and let the facts speak for themselves. Josh and Max looked like they'd been coached. Nice suits, somber faces, clasped hands. The kind of performance people put on when they're more embarrassed to be caught than sorry for what they did. Claire and Emma were there too, sitting beside them like dutiful wives at a war tribunal. Neither of them looked at me as I walked in. Good. The judge, an older woman with tired eyes and a voice like gravel, listened as Officer Danvers laid out the evidence. Witness statements, photos, time-stamped surveillance clips. The flyers were the worst part. Seeing my home printed like a rental brochure, with rates and ocean views, bullet-pointed under, perfect for families. That made my stomach twist. Josh's lawyer stood up and spun a story about miscommunication, about intentions to improve the property, about an unfortunate misunderstanding among relatives. He used the word misunderstanding so many times I half expected the judge to throw her gavel at him. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. This wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. This was a violation. They knew the house was mine. I told them no. They broke in anyway. If they'd been strangers, we wouldn't be here negotiating apologies, we'd be talking about jail time. I looked over at them, not the husbands, but my sisters. Their faces were pale, lips pressed tight. I don't want revenge, I added. But I want it acknowledged. That this happened. That it was wrong. And that it cost me something real. The judge nodded slowly. She tapped her pen a few times, then issued her ruling. No jail, but restitution paid in full for damages, court-ordered community service, and a mandatory letter of apology. That last part made Josh flinch like he'd been slapped. Outside the courtroom, the four of them stood in a huddle, avoiding my gaze. I walked past without a word. That should have been the end of it. But endings, I've learned, are rarely clean. The next week, Claire sent me her letter first. Handwritten. Short. Honest. I let things get out of hand. I supported Josh because I was afraid to confront how wrong it was. I let greed speak louder than love, and that shames me. I know this doesn't fix it, but I'm sorry. It made me cry. Not out of forgiveness, but because for the first time in months, something real had pierced the wall between us. Josh's letter came next. Typed. Formal. Like a performance review from a bad boss. I regret my actions. I acknowledge that I made poor decisions that caused distress. I will not repeat them. No emotion. No ownership. No apology, really. Emma's letter arrived last. Hers was different. I didn't think it would come to this. I thought we were still a family that could talk things out. I see now how entitled I became and how blind I was to your boundaries. You deserved better from me. You were right to say no. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to defend that. That one hit me hardest. Because Emma and I, despite everything, had shared more history than harm. Until now. For a moment, I wondered if this was the part in the story where we all start healing, go on a family retreat, rebuild what was broken. But then Max sent me a text. You happy now? You ruined my name for nothing. You think you're better than us? Don't flatter yourself. And just like that, I knew the line between us wasn't a crack, it was a chasm. I didn't reply. I blocked him. If Josh's letter was hollow and Claire's was heartfelt, then Max's was a lit match on gasoline. And Emma, well, I don't know where we stand anymore. Maybe nowhere. Maybe that's okay. 2 weeks later, I went back to the beach house. This time, I brought paint. I didn't want to erase what happened, but I needed to reclaim it. I repainted the door, changed the curtains, swapped the rug in the living room. I replaced the key lock with a keypad, changed the code to a number no one but me could possibly guess. I even painted over the scuff mark on the counter. It's not gone, not really, but I don't have to look at it anymore. Then I sat on the porch, watching the tide roll in. I thought about what people say about family. That they're everything. That they're all you have. That blood is thicker than water. Maybe, but sometimes water is where you go to breathe, to float, to remember you're still alive. And family? Sometimes they're just people who knew you before you had a spine. The truth is, I still love them. In a distant, painful way. But love isn't a contract. It doesn't require you to hand over your soul just because someone shares your last name. So I'll keep the house. I'll keep the boundaries. And I'll keep moving forward. Not because I won, but because I finally stopped losing. It's been 4 months since the hearing. 4 months since the letters, the apologies, the insults, and the silence that followed. In that time, the world kept spinning, emails kept coming, groceries still had to be bought. Life doesn't care that your family gutted you like a fish. It expects you to show up anyway. So I did. I didn't expect healing to feel so unceremonious. There was no grand reconciliation, no teary montage where we all hug on a windswept cliff. There was just time. And space. And the quiet process of reclaiming peace. The beach house has changed. Not in any way you'd notice from the outside, but it feels different now. Mine again. Not just in title, but in energy. I stopped looking at the door like it owed me an apology. I stopped checking the windows every hour like a burglar might crawl through with the last name matching mine. Instead, I started planting things. First it was succulents by the windowsill, then herbs in little pots by the porch. Nothing ambitious, just small, manageable life. Something to root. Something that won't lie to you or demand access to your soul. One morning while trimming basil, I got a message from Emma. Just 3 words. Thinking of you. That was it. No follow-up. No pressure. Just a whisper in the hallway of our broken house. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. There's no script for after. No etiquette guide for sisters who betrayed each other and now orbit one another like ex-planets. Still in the same system, but spinning separately. Claire and I exchanged a few texts over the summer. Safe topics, weather, recipes, a shared memory of our dad's awful attempts at barbecue. It wasn't closure. But it wasn't war either. That I could live with. Josh and Max? Still pretending they're the victims, last I heard. Word got around. Apparently Josh lost a small business deal because someone Googled him. Max got passed over for a promotion. Their reputations, like their marriages, took a hit. I don't celebrate it. But I also don't grieve it. Actions have consequences. That's not revenge, it's math. But here's the part one didn't expect. The guilt. Not the kind that says I was wrong. I wasn't. But the kind that lingers when you've been taught your whole life that your job is to absorb the damage, not deflect it. That to protect yourself is to betray the tribe. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I should have just handed them the keys. Not because they deserved it, but because maybe then I'd still have sisters who called me on my birthday. Maybe I'd still get invited to things. Maybe I wouldn't be the difficult one. But that's the thing about boundaries. They don't just protect you, they isolate you. And isolation, even when necessary, is still lonely. I tried therapy. Once. The woman nodded a lot, made notes on a pad I couldn't see. She said words like trauma response and generational patterns. I never went back. Not because she was wrong, but because everything she said, I already knew. I just didn't know what to do with it. So I started writing letters. To Emma. To Claire. Even to Josh and Max. I never sent them. But in one I wrote, I don't hate you. I hate what you revealed in me. The part that believed I had to earn the right to say no. The part that believed love means sacrifice, even of self. That letter I burned in the fireplace. Felt right. I think about my mother sometimes. What she'd say if she saw us now. She loved fiercely but selectively. She used to say, we protect what we value. I wonder now if she knew what she was preparing me for when she left the house to me. Maybe she'd seen it coming. The cracks. The hunger. The inevitable storm. Or maybe she just knew I'd be the only one who wouldn't sell it for scraps. There's a kind of peace in solitude that I never understood before. Not loneliness, peace. The absence of performance. The freedom to breathe in your own space without anyone monetizing your air. I walk the beach now more often. Sometimes I talk aloud. To no one. To everyone. To ghosts and God and maybe even myself. I say things like, it wasn't your fault. Or, they chose themselves so I chose me. That last one sticks. Because in the end that's what it came down to. A choice. Not between forgiveness and punishment, but between being consumed or being sovereign. And I chose sovereignty. I still don't know if we'll ever sit at the same table again. Maybe someday. Maybe never. But I've let go of needing it. Let go of the idea that closure has to come with a bow, that wounds have to be witnessed to be valid. The beach house stands. Quiet, solid mine. Sometimes I get visitors, friends, colleagues, even the occasional lost tourist. I host, I pour wine, I laugh. And when they leave, I lock the door behind them without guilt. Because it's my door. Because now, I know the price of leaving it open too long. People think betrayal is loud. Obvious. But it's not. It starts with soft footsteps in places you never invited them to go. It ends with you asking yourself how long you ignored the sound. Never again. I didn't win anything, really. Except this, the right to exist intact. And in a world like this, that's no small victory. So here's how it ends. With me alone barefoot on the deck. With salt in the air. With the door locked. And with peace. Finally, peace. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss more true life stories just like this one.